Check, check. Hello, everyone. If we could just get you to stand and rise for O Canada, and then we'll get on with our evening. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Keith Giselson. I'm the current president of the Winkler and District Chamber of Commerce. And on behalf of everyone in the chamber, I'd like to welcome you to this evening's event. We have a lot of candidates here this year, and we want to devote as much time as possible to hear what they have to say. So I'm going to be as brief as I can. I'm going to ask that in order to keep this focused on task, the audience refrain from disruptions in the evening, including applauding or any kind of show of support or non-support for particular candidates. We want to make sure everybody has a fair and even time to say their things and answer all the questions. Just so you're aware, the candidate answers will be timed. They're relatively short, so we want to give everybody a chance to speak. If you see the light at the beginning, they're going to get a yellow light, about 30 seconds left, and then a red light when their time is done. At that point, they will be cut off. So it's not because we don't like what they have to say, it's just because they ran out of time. We do have some pre-submitted questions just to get things started. We took some of the most popular of those, and those will be asked. If you have additional questions, any voting resident in the city of Winkler can ask questions. To do that, there's pens and paper floating around. Just raise your hand if you've got one, pass it, flag down any of the volunteers that are roaming the aisles, and we'll get that up. I'm anticipating we won't have time to answer all the questions, so we will make sure that all of the candidates do get all the questions after the event. I'm sure it'll happen in the next day or so, but we'll get it to them as quickly as possible so that they can see what kind of things you are asking about. We are going to choose questions, and we ask that your questions are directed to all candidates and not to a specific candidate. That way everybody has a chance to speak. And then to begin, I'm going to introduce our moderator. Our moderator is Vern Reimer. Hi, Vern. He's a lifelong resident of Winkler who recently retired after serving Garden Valley School Division for 32 years as a teacher, principal, and superintendent. He and his wife Cheryl have 2 married children and 8 grandchildren. So with that, I'll turn it over to Vern.
Thank you, Keith. And thanks to the Chamber for hosting this forum. A forum such as this is not an election requirement. It is a courtesy. So in this case, we thank the Chamber for extending that courtesy to both the candidates and the voters. So thank you again to the Chamber. Welcome, candidates. Thank you for your willingness to serve this community. And certainly to you, the voters of Winkler, thank you for participating in the democratic process and supporting these candidates. And remember to vote on October 26th. Excellent, excellent. So with that, we'll begin with the introductions and the 5-minute speeches from our 2 mayoral candidates. So the way this will work is I will read the introduction that they submitted to the Chamber, after which they will have 5 minutes as mayor candidates to speak. Carl Krebs. Carl Krebs has been a resident of Winkler since 2003. He gave his life to Christ at Lake Nudimic Baptist Camp at age 13. He attended Bible school and is a graduate with a diploma in business administration. He has owned and operated his own business since 1986. In 2008, after more than 20 years in the automotive business, Carl entered the trucking industry as an owner-operator for 13 years until 2021. In 2020, he became an outspoken critic of the New World Order, the WEF, and the governments that pander to them. Carl is here tonight to give us his vision of what he would do if he were to become the mayor of Winkler. Mr. Krebs, please.
Thank you for that introduction, Vern. I want to thank the Chamber for hosting this event, and I want to thank all of you that came out here in person and those that are listening by live stream. I want to start off by reading something, and it stems from a meeting that was held at the South Central Library Board where 150 concerned parents showed up to voice their concerns over books that are making their way into our community. These books deal with pornography, child abuse, grooming, and accountability. That was the presentation made by the delegation. And I'm going to read something to you, and I'm hoping that we have the appropriate audience here because this was read at that board meeting, and I'm reading from the book All Boys Are Not Blue, and it's written from the perspective of a 10-year-old narrator. You are much taller than me by about a foot. You told me to take off my pajama pants, which I did. You then took off your shorts, followed by your boxers. You stood there fully erect and said, taste it. At first I refused, but then you said, come on, Matt, taste it. This is what boys do when they like each other. I knew it was wrong, not because I was having sexual intercourse with a boy, but because you are my family. Give your stomachs a chance to settle on that. I find it hard to read every time I read it. I was standing there with 150 parents, and there would have been much more than that had it been publicized. And to date, that delegation has not been afforded a proper response from the board. There were 2 petitions put in, one for certain books, but this one encapsulated those 4 areas that I mentioned. I'm not going to mention them again, and they were mentioned in light of the Criminal Code of Canada. My question is actually 2. How did that book get in our library? And number 2, how did we get here? On the stage tonight is Mr. Marvin Platt. He is the board chair of the South Central Library, and I'm hoping tonight that at least one of you, either by way of sending it in or putting it forward tonight, will ask that question. When will this delegation get an answer to their question? That concern has to resonate in the hearts of every person in this room, whether you're a father, a mother, or a grandparent. Our children are being sacrificed on these altars of special interest groups that come into our community and dominate. And the way they come in is by boards that are appointed, not elected, operating in back rooms and boardrooms that operate beyond the purview of the community and without accountability. I'm concerned about that. I hope you're concerned about it because this community is much better than these books indicate. We have a crisis in this community, and despite what you believe, we are divided, and we need to reunite about what is truth. My pledge as mayor is to always represent the best interests and values of these communities, of this community of Winkler. Those values, those interests that have steered us this far and made us the community that we are. A community that has been a faith-based community. My question is, are we still a faith-based community? That's the question for all of us. And I hope that in some way, shape, or form tonight, we're not going to spend too much time talking about infrastructure and a water waste management treatment plant that we all know we need, but rather talk about core value issues that are threatening our community today. Our children need to be protected. They are our future. And if we don't protect them, who will? It's time for us to come forward and stand together as a community and say no to this agenda that comes in and threatens our community. For those of you that have never voted, is this your time? The book of Esther makes that clear. Were you born for a time such as this? Because 41.2% of you came out last time to vote. We need much more than that. These issues are core, and what we seed and who we seed into council this time is going to make the difference in everything. I probably have only a few seconds left, and I want to issue a challenge to Henry. We have been sitting here talking. The issues are great, and this forum will not give us a lot of time to deal with them. So I'm asking Henry, I'm extending an invitation for him to have a debate with myself, just the two of us with a moderator. Perhaps Vern is available, I don't know. But we would live stream that debate and talk about dream, build, live. That's the new motto of Winkler. What does it mean to dream, build, and live in Winkler? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Krebs. Henry Siemens. Henry Siemens is an almost lifelong resident of Winkler. He is a husband to Karina and dad to Natalia and Dylan. He owns and operates Serious Marketing, proudly providing jobs to 41 talented people. Henry is a proven leader who is committed to level-headed debate of the issues and concerns that affect Winkler. He believes that the best decisions are made when everyone's voice can be heard. He has served 4 terms as an elected councillor, helping lead Winkler through a period of tremendous change and growth. For 12 of those years, he was asked to be deputy mayor. Mr. Siemens, please.
Good evening. For the past 16 years, it's been my privilege to represent Winkler as an elected councillor, already stated. Winkler is an amazing, unique community. I've been blessed to be part of the leadership team that has worked to nurture and grow that. We have a great community, but we do have work to do. We just heard some of it next to me here. Our next mayor and council will need to work to rebuild our reputation and our relationships, both inside Winkler and in the greater world. When you consider the candidates you're going to hear from tonight, ask yourself, who has demonstrated an ability to have level-headed conversations in the midst of the craziness of the past 30 months? These are the people that should have your support. Moving forward, we will need leaders who can have calm, respectful dialogue with even those they disagree with. The work of the next 4 years will not be less than it has been the last 2. It will be different, but it will not be less. During this next term, council will need to deal with massive capital projects that will affect Winkler for generations. We can't ignore those conversations. We can't say, let's not talk about them. We have to talk about them. We've arrived at an almost perfect storm of things that need to be done. Our long-awaited wastewater treatment project is being reworked because inflation killed the last plan. Something needs to be done, or Winkler can't grow anymore. We need to expand our drinking water capacity, or Winkler can't grow anymore. The C.W. Weeb Medical Center and the Boundary Trails Hospital both need to expand, or they can't serve the people who need medical services, and Winkler won't grow anymore. Both of them need our financial contribution to make it a reality. We've been awarded a grant of $8 million from Canada to renovate our Centennial Arena. We hope to hear of some support for that project from Manitoba soon as well. Even if we get that, it will still require some money from us. If we don't make these investments into our recreation infrastructure, we risk becoming unattractive for families, and Winkler won't grow anymore. These large projects are desperately needed, but they're also more than a little bit scary. How in the world can we do them and not stop doing everything else? It comes back to relationships and partnerships. We need leaders that have proven that they can build them. We need Canada and Manitoba and Morden and Stanley and Rhineland and our own internal community working together. There are solutions out there we haven't even thought of yet. We need leaders who are prepared to have difficult but respectful conversations to find them. Winkler is blessed with a strong, creative business community. I'm thankful for the business leaders who continue to invest in Winkler on a daily basis, because I truly believe that everything starts with the job. And in Winkler, we literally have hundreds of good jobs available today. What our businesses need is for council to keep rules straightforward and fair, and then to get out of the way. We need leaders who are prepared to listen to the voices of those who would help grow Winkler. In a community growing as fast as Winkler, not everyone benefits equally from that growth. We need to continue to invest into the Winkler resource community, into organizations like Central Station, into affordable housing. We need leaders who are prepared to sit at the table with those who would fill the gaps in our social safety net and listen to the good ideas that in many instances are already there. All of that said, we can't forget that we already pay lots of taxes. If we want to continue to be a welcoming place for seniors, for families, for businesses, we have to make sure that they can afford to be here. We have to carefully balance our needs and wants with our ability to pay. Today's inflationary world, coupled with what needs to be done, means that taxes will increase, but we must work to make sure that they remain fair. I'm not telling you anything new. We have big challenges, but they can be turned into big opportunities if our leaders step forward with big commitment and big ideas. I'm prepared to make that commitment to you, but it's your decision. In the end, it's all about who you want representing you. Vote for Henry Siemens if you want an even, level-headed, relationship-building leader as mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Siemens. These are your two mayoral candidates. We'll now move to the introductions and 2.5-minute speeches from the 13 candidates campaigning for 6 council seats. Daryl Harder. My name is Daryl Harder. I'm happily married to my wife, Dina, for the past 20 years. We have 2 children, Tyler and Juliana. I have lived in Winkler most of my life. I'm a GVC graduate, entrepreneur, car enthusiast, enjoy the outdoors and helping others. I'm a board president of 2 residential condo boards, treasurer and board member of a local nonprofit, and church volunteer. As a part owner of Delmar Commodities for 25 years, my role was primarily human resources and office management. I currently work with Ironman Industries in a similar role. Together with my wife, Dina, we started Dillis Boutique in 2018, which she owns and operates. Mr. Harder, please.
Thank you, Mr. Reimer. Good evening, everyone. Genuine, motivated, and capable. 3 characteristics of my campaign I define as someone who has authentic interest in others and what they have to say, then taking those ideas or concerns and coming up with resolutions. If elected, these words will remain key to my success. So why me? With over 25 years of business ownership and management experience, I've developed a wealth of knowledge and understanding of the challenges in owning or operating a business. From the start of an idea to the sale of a company, I've been part of it all. As a manager in human resources, I know how hard it is to hire and retain good employees. I recognize the need for affordable housing. As a landlord and president of 2 condo boards, it's provided insight into what brings people here and their needs in terms of space, cost, or amenities. I commend the city and developers who work together to address this issue, but the challenge will continue as our city grows. Having worked through the process of immigration, I know the challenges newcomers face, from language barriers, culture shock, or simply understanding how things work and where to go for help. They need guidance. Add to that the issue of public transportation, a concern which many of you have expressed. It's a local and regional need. As treasurer and director of a local nonprofit for at-risk kids, I understand how they function and hear the stories of what brings kids to their doors. Unstable or broken homes, addictions, run-ins with the law, to name a few. Help is needed to address that. Having raised 2 kids together with my wife, I know the fears kids face regarding their future and how unprepared they can feel due to lack of direction, education, or life skills they require to prepare them as future leaders. You may ask how or why this is relevant and makes me the right choice, but it paints a picture of who I am, my leadership qualities, abilities, and most of all, trust that you require in a city councilor. A growing community is a thriving community, and every decision in the process is important. And this is your first step in achieving that goal by voting. Being genuine, motivated, and capable is proven in my life experiences, and I will use them if elected as councilor. So thank you for your time, and I look forward to your vote for me on October 26th.
Thank you, Mr. Harder. Thomas Rempel. Thomas Rempel moved to Winkler when he was 15, where he has spent most of his life since then living. He is the husband of 2.5 years to his wife Leah, has a 1-year-old son and another one due in December. Thomas is a full-time property manager and currently spends time serving the community as a deacon at church and serving at Central Station. In the past, he has also been involved with the bunker, mission work in Puerto Rico, Habitat for Humanity, and the Special Olympics. Mr. Rempel, please.
Good evening. Thanks for the introduction, and thanks to everyone here tonight taking the time to make your city a priority. I believe that Winkler is the best city in Canada. I believe what makes Winkler such a great city is that, like myself, the mayors and the councillors of the past have believed that the best policies are the ones informed by the objective standards of the Bible. Some would say that religion has no place in politics, but the truth is that's impossible. Everyone's standard of what is good, moral, and true are influenced by their religious philosophical view. I think we can all agree that when it comes to policy, we need to prioritize what is good, moral, and true, and that doing that benefits everyone. The benefit to telling you that is that you have an objective, unchanging standard when it comes to challenging decisions. You won't have to wonder where I stand. Another thing that makes Winkler great is opportunity. Whether you just arrived a week ago to start a new life, or you've spent your whole life growing up here, it's a place where anyone willing to put in the time and effort can truly make something of themselves. The rest of the community is not only happy to see them succeed, but ready to help. As citizens, that means shopping locally, and as a councilman, it would mean giving them the resources they need and then getting out of the way and letting them do what they do best. Lastly, Winkler is a safe and stable place to live. That's true in large part because it's filled with safe and stable homes. The single best thing we can do for our city is to go home and love our family, because there's no denying that when children are raised in a home with loving parents who never have to worry about a roof over their head or food on the table, it means lower crime, higher grades, higher self-esteem, and the list goes on. I recognize that while this is the ideal, it's not always possible. This is when the community needs to work together to overcome these challenges by supporting programs like the Central Station, local churches, food banks, and counseling services. It also means tackling the increased cost of living and making life more affordable for everyone. Over the past 2 years, I have seen a lot of fighting in the community. People fighting against people who they think are making Winkler feel unsafe. People who feel that they are fighting against the fact that they can't worship or work the way they want. Truthfully, I think we're all fighting for the same thing. The Winkler that brought you here from across the world, or the Winkler that you couldn't help but to leave. My goal is to help make Winkler that city again with all of your help. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rempel. Michael Grenier. Michael Grenier is looking to serve you and our incredible city as a third-term councillor. With the support of his wife, Melissa, and their 2 children, he has been honored to serve this great community for the past 8 years. Michael brings a proven track record to the table as a team player, common sense thinker, and someone willing to take time to listen. He looks forward to being part of the solution, tackling new challenges this coming term. Mr. Grenier, please.
Good evening, Mr. Moderator, fellow candidates, and to our audience here and at home. I want to start by offering my thanks to outgoing Mayor Harder and Councillor Bickert. Thank you for your friendship and service to our city, and to your families for sharing you with us. What can I say about this past term on City Council? It's been a privilege to serve as chairperson of Regional Connections and Winkler Fire Department boards, as treasurer for Winkler Arts and Culture, and representing our city on several other committees. I want to offer 2 highlights from this term. First, being able to be a part of Regional Connections Board, learning what I have through the stories of new residents. It has been an incredible experience hearing about the successes and struggles they share as they work, play, and enjoy living in Winkler. Secondly, implementing an asset management program. City staff have poured hours into ensuring we have accurate data on the conditions and lifespan of our streets, water, sewer, and more. Having this plan in place takes away a lot of what-ifs, giving council clear direction and allowing common sense decisions to be made. Looking ahead to the upcoming term, we have a lot on our plate as a city. Drinking water, wastewater, recreation, levels of service, and improving accessibility. Tackling these issues will require a council with experience and a willingness to work collaboratively towards the common goal of doing what is best for Winkler. As your city councillor, I've shown an ability to collaborate and to get things done. In closing, I'm hoping there's some Toronto Blue Jays fans out here this evening so my analogy doesn't get totally lost. The Jays are a great ball team, some incredible young talent, and if you've watched a few games, you've seen a favorite of mine, a short, stocky guy named Alejandro Kirk. He's not glamorous or loud, but he gets the job done by being a top-notch team player and giving 100% to the role that he's assigned. I want to be the Alejandro Kirk of this city council. I look forward to this opportunity to serve and find solutions. On October 26th, please vote for me, Michael Grenier, your city councillor. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Grenier, or Alejandro. Peter Fraze. Peter and his wife Shirley recently celebrated their 42nd anniversary. He has 3 daughters, 3 sons-in-law, and 6 wonderful grandchildren. He retired from the city of Winkler in June of 2021 after a very rewarding 39-year career. He enjoys camping, fishing, golfing, and of course, spending time with his family. Mr. Fraze, please.
Good evening to everyone in the audience, fellow candidates, and Mr. Moderator. Why should all of you vote for Peter Fraze? I have the desire to serve the citizens of Winkler, not just because I think it's an amazing place to live, but because of what my family and I have experienced because of the opportunities we were given by the good citizens of Winkler in the 39 years that I was employed by the city. I was 16 years an equipment operator, 15 years a foreman, 8 years the director of works and operations. I have been physically involved with and have had a hand in planning many of the projects that have made Winkler one of the fastest growing communities, not just in Manitoba, but in Canada. A lot of things have been done well by previous councils and staff to make this a safe place to live and a safe place to raise families. I want to make sure it stays that way. I believe I have the insight and experience to help the wonderful city of Winkler move forward. Agendas are misleading, platforms are very often disappointing, and no one can promise to lower the taxes while providing more and better services. But with fiscally responsible budgets and planning, we can continue to offer exceptional services and amenities to the citizens of Winkler. I will come to the table with a common sense approach and a transparent attitude. The citizens of Winkler deserve no less. Now that I'm retired, I would like to give back a portion of what I have received. That's time. One more thing. If ever we start talking about making golf carts street legal, I will be in favor of it. On October 26th, please vote Peter Fraze. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fraze. Mark Bennett. Mark Bennett started his career in finance before shifting to corporate technology in 2000. Mark and his wife moved to Winkler in 2007 to raise their 2 kids, now 16 and 11 years old. Some of the volunteer roles he's held and still holds include Public Information Officer for the Southern Emergency Response Committee, Big Brothers Big Sisters Board of Directors, the Pembina Valley Local Immigration Partnership Committee. Mark is currently the HR Manager and Safety Officer for the PLS Group of Companies. Mr. Bennett, please.
Thank you, Mr. Reimer. I'm going to go a little bit off script here right now, share a story with everybody. The reason Tara and I moved to Winkler was we were sitting in our house, in our bedroom, watching TV, and there was loud bangs outside. And we were in the Osborne Village, the good side of Osborne Village, for those of you that know Winnipeg. And we heard bangs, and we thought, well, maybe it might be fireworks from the Forks. It's Saturday night in June. Why would there be fireworks? What it was a coordinated effort from the drug task force that was taking down 2 gang units that were in the apartment block across the back lane from us. So having a 1-year-old half a house away from that didn't seem like a great idea. So I said, "Hon, could you tell me about Winkler again? Because I think I'm kind of interested now." And she told me a story of a place where it was diverse. There was tons of opportunity. People were accepted. But of course, challenges. And as we go through tonight, you'll hear things like infrastructure a lot. Well, what does infrastructure mean to folks? Well, right now, there are 1,000 open jobs in Winkler. Any HR manager, anybody in staffing in the room knows it's really hard to find and keep people. So how do we staff those jobs? What's been happening is companies are having to increase the rates of pay for people, which means that the rates of their products and then services are also increased. This is an issue. We also have an influx of immigration, as Vern mentioned I'm part of the Pembina Valley Local Immigration Partnership Committee, and what I'm seeing is an influx of people who are willing to work, wanting to work, but how can they come to work at a business when they don't speak the language? Are businesses willing to include interpreters? How do we ensure that safe work is being done? So tonight I hope that we get to the bottom of a lot of these issues. We have open dialogue. I'm really looking forward to the questions. And I want to thank the Chamber. I want to thank everybody online for tuning into this and everybody here. On the 26th, we did say 26th, not 25th, right? Okay, so 26th, please vote for Merck Bennett. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bennett. Greg Unruh. Greg Unruh is currently a corporate account manager at Solutions IT. He has extensive experience in retail and management and brings a unique perspective to the position of City Councillor. He has been serving on the Winkler Chamber of Commerce for the past few years and looks forward to becoming more actively involved in continuing to grow and develop our great community working alongside our citizens. His history with negotiation and sales lends itself well to the fiscal responsibilities required for service in this role. Mr. Unruh, please.
Thank you. As mentioned, I am Greg Unruh. I was born and raised in Winkler, and I currently work at Solutions IT as a corporate account manager. I would most certainly not fit into the mold of a conventional candidate for a position such as this, but I will bring a very unique perspective. My family has been a part of the Cork community here for generations, and my grandparents were a large part of building this city into what it is today. I would love the opportunity to become part of building this community up to the next level, as we still have so much more than we can accomplish. I've experienced many different stages in my life that have prepared me for representing the wide variety and diverse population that now resides in this community. I've experienced homelessness and despair while living on the streets, and some may wish to look upon that as a shortcoming, but I learned a great deal about the world from that perspective, and it provided me with insight that most candidates likely won't have. On the flip side of that equation, I've also achieved great success in the world of retail and management over the years, and have become one of the top performers in my field. I've acquired many skills over the years that have been responsible for the operation of large companies, which would have very similar budgets to the oversight of budgets similar to the size of the city of Winkler. I understand the importance of fiscal responsibility, and I do not take it lightly, as the decisions that we make here reflect the money that is contributed by the hardworking people of this community, all of you. I greatly enjoy serving on the Winkler Chamber of Commerce Board, and running for council is a way that I feel I can give back even more to the community that I grew up in. But I also wish to give a voice to the people in our midst that sometimes feel marginalized because they don't have money or influence. This should not happen. I recognize that my vote on council would represent one of 7, but I have spent the majority of my life creating win-win situations through business transactions, and this would be a great benefit when working for the public interest. I'm interested in fostering unity in our city. I think that Winkler's population at its core is full of good people with traditional values, despite the fact that we don't always see eye to eye on everything. I would like for us to work together as a whole in order to ensure that we maintain the high standards that were set by our former leaders that have worked so hard to get us where we are at this time. They have served us well, and it is now time for some new and fresh ideas to take us into the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Unruh. Randy Ritz. Have lived in Winkler all my life, born and raised here, graduated Garden Valley School System, married wife Karen, 2 children, Marcy and Jody. Currently chairman of Winkler Heritage Society and Trinity Lutheran Church. Businessman in Winkler, currently owner of Randy's Cards and Collectibles. Have been involved in sports throughout my life as a player and later as executive member. Mr. Ritz, please.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. And to all you councillors, people running for council, mayor candidates, and the people at Winkler that are here to hear us speak today. I've lived here all my life, born and raised. I have a passion for Winkler. I am proud to say when people ask, I live in the city of Winkler. As our sign outside the city says, yes, Winkler. I graduated myself from Garden Valley, got into business with my father after schooling. After a while with him, I started my own businesses. I've been involved in various local charity groups in the community. As mentioned, I'm chairman of the Heritage Society, involved in church work. People that come to this city look at Winkler and kind of envy us. Winkler is a city that is very aggressive in business, in agriculture, industry, shopping, and entertainment. It's the perfect city to raise your family in. We have a great school system here. There's excellent jobs available, as mentioned. It's a good place to start a business. And when the time comes, a place to retire. Winkler has lots to offer people. I also strongly believe in a faith-based community with strong family values. With growth in this community, we also do get the bad things like crime, and therefore I support a strong police department and a solid fire department service. I also support the healthcare system, the doctors and nurses. We have to aggressively go after more doctors for our community. We need to attract more of them here. I think our doctors and nurses have been kind of mistreated over the last number of years, and I think we owe them a bit of an apology. Support for the local water program, as mentioned, is also on the agenda. And basically, the bottom line, my plan would be to use common sense in all the decisions that I would make. I plan to be visible in the community, talking to the people and hearing their concerns, work with council, make the right decisions to further the goals of the community. Please vote for me on October 26th. It's my third time running for council. I'm a third-generation candidate. My grandfather and father were councillors.
Thank you, Mr. Ritz.
Thank you.
I'm sorry your time is up. Don Friesen. I have called Winkler my home for the past 37 years and have served 8 years on Winkler City Council from 2010 to 2018. Having owned Choice Realty for 26 years and sitting on numerous church and nonprofit boards has taught me a lot about working with other people. I'm very approachable, open-minded, and care deeply about our community. Being retired, I feel I have the time and energy to help serve on Winkler City Council. Mr. Friesen, please.
Good evening. I searched the definition of a politician online, and that was depressing. This was part of what I read. Many critics attack politicians for being out of touch with the public. Areas of friction include how to speak, which is being described as overly formal and attempt to obscure or mislead. The popular image of a politician, unfortunately, is clueless, selfish, shrewd, dishonest, incompetent, and corrupt. Wow. Who on earth wants that title? Not me. As I sit here hoping to be elected to City Council, some people say that means I want to be a politician, but I'm far from wanting that title. My commitment to you is that I want to serve. That's it, plain and simple. We live in a great community. We have a relatively safe city thanks to a very committed police service. We need to keep maintaining it at an affordable level. A great hospital and medical facilities with dedicated doctors, nurses, and staff, and we need to keep working on recruiting more medical staff. A great business economy with tons of jobs. We need to keep working on attracting the right people in our community while still not overwhelming our schools and housing. A great social net in place to help the struggling people in our community, and we need to keep trying to provide affordable housing for the young and old. Some great rec facilities, which we need to keep updating and adding for future demands. A great fire department with very committed people working and volunteering there, and blessed with lots of places to worship. We take these things for granted, but there are lots of communities out there that are very envious of us. I was elected to Winkler City Council for 2 terms, serving from 2010 to 2018, and I've gained lots of experience and knowledge during those 2 terms. After selling our real estate company, I had the opportunity to be part of the management team at Decor Cabins for 4 years. There I gained the experience of working in a large corporation. I did not run in the 2018 election to focus on my new role at Decor. I'm a proud father of a gifted daughter with a passion to serve overseas and an awesome son and daughter-in-law who are now partners in Choice Realty. My newest title is Grandpa. Since I have the time and with support of my wife and family, I like to get back into the helping with our great city again. I'll commit to trying to keep my finger on the pulse of the public opinions to determine whether council is properly representing the wishes of the taxpayer. I like thinking outside the box and I'm passionate about this community. If elected, I want to maintain the core values that this great city is being built on while adapting to the needs of future generations. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Friesen. Don Fair. Don has proudly been a citizen of Winkler for over 50 years. Together with his wife Kathy, they have raised 3 incredible children in our community: Nicole and Dan, Justin and Brittany, and Colin and Danica. They are also proud grandparents of Warren, Ezra, and Smith. The past 8 years, Don has passionately served on City Council as a visionary leader. He has served as MSTW Planning District Chair, City Planning, Senior Center, Fire Department, Winkler Airport Authority, and Finance, as well as 13 years leading children's ministry. Always a fighter for the less fortunate, Don advocates for affordable housing, seniors, Gateway Resources, Central Station, Winkler Food Cupboard, Winkler Family Resource, Genesis House, and other organizations that help improve Winkler's citizens' quality of life. Don's vision for Winkler is to provide more affordable housing, business development, and community supports which all allow our city to continue to thrive and grow. Mr. Fair.
Thank you, Vern. Thank you, everyone, for attending tonight. I'd like to also welcome everybody on live stream. As you know, this is an extremely important event an election that will affect the future of our great city. As an 8-year veteran on council, the last 2 years, as all of us has experienced, has been extremely challenging with the extra workload on keeping our community safe and unified. I feel blessed having the opportunity to work through this and see the resilience our people are known for. Positive attitudes in uncertain times is hard. However, it builds a strong character for the future. What are we as leaders of the community facing today, and what are we doing about it? Well, affordable housing is quite a buzzword. I'm involved in local and regional planning that work with and provide support to our local developers. We have a shared vision for the needs of our community, whether it be multifamily, single family, or commercial. We as a city have also taken over Manitoba Housing in Winkler that support low-income families. And as you know, affordable housing cannot happen without expanded infrastructure, which is a buzzword now, but that is true. As you all know by now, our water and wastewater projects need to happen quickly. Having the background on these projects, I will continue to advocate for a cost-effective plan that will provide our city's needs for the future. We talked about in the opening, community organizations. I strongly support the dedicated efforts like Central Station, Gateway Resources, Winkler Senior Center, Genesis House, Winkler Food Cupboard, and many other services that they provide, and it fills a need for the people that fall in that gap. Transportation has been a big issue. We must have affordable cost to the user, cost effective for the city, and provide a level of service people can count on. I have a plan that could fill that need. Healthcare population, as we know, is aging, and we support everything.
Thank you, Mr. Fair. Sorry about the mic. Dustin, are we okay to continue? Do we need to look at that? We're good? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Fair. Don Cruikshank. Don Cruikshank has chosen to make Winkler his home for over 16 years. He and his wife, Crystal, find Winkler a great place to raise a family. Their son, Justice, and daughter, Ariana, both attend the J.R. Walkoff School, where Don serves as the Parent Advisory Council Chair. Don believes that serving where you live is very important. As a result, Don has served by being the Honorable Candice Bergen's elected delegate for Federal Conservatives' 2021 Policy and Bylaw Convention, as his local church's board chair, coaching local sports teams, volunteering for provincial and federal elected officials, and being the Honorable Cameron Friesen's scrutineer on Election Day in 2016. Don Cruikshank is now asking for the opportunity to serve you. Mr. Cruikshank, please.
Greetings. Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Mr. Moderator has highlighted some of the areas that I've served, and I believe you'll come to the conclusion that you can trust me to serve well and with integrity. My life is about service. I'm running because Winkler's a great place that we've chosen to call home, and I think many others should call this their home. However, Winkler faces some serious challenges, including housing that's affordable and affordable housing, transportation, employment vacancy issues, recreational activities families can do together, additional options in post-secondary schooling, a lack of childcare options, and increased care for seniors and marginalized citizens. All of these issues were issues for Winkler in 2018 when the Winkler Vital Signs Community Survey came out, and yet they remain issues today. We need to find some solutions. I believe a master's degree in leadership and management will help solve these issues by bringing a new perspective, collaborative problem-solving strategies, and asking challenging questions. We need to make a serious push on maximizing land value by ensuring multifamily dwellings are built for first-time homebuyers. We also need to ensure more affordable housing is built in the areas where families are not hindered by transportation. Speaking with Central Station, I learned that there's a $60,000 feasibility study scheduled that will explore some type of public transportation. This is critical as we know all future developments will be occurring in Northlands West and East, along with Southlands West and East, which are all by city limits. My wife's a professional. In fact, she's the CFO for Eden Healthcare Services. All healthcare and professional services, as well as retail and restaurants, are struggling to find employees. There are currently 800 to 1,000 vacant jobs in Winkler, and this hurts Winkler because businesses can't grow. We must promote quality of life, as it would go a long way in recruiting young professionals looking for a rewarding career and a great place to raise their family. Could additional options in post-secondary study encourage local residents to develop their careers right here in Winkler? Could introducing tax incentives for private daycares encourage more private daycares to open? I think so. On October 26th, I'm asking for your vote so that I can be part of the team that finally brings solutions to the issues facing Winkler that we've identified but not yet solved. My name's Don Cruikshank, and I'm here to serve.
Thank you, Mr. Cruikshank. Marvin Plett. Marvin and Elvira have 2 children and 4 grandchildren. He was a junior high teacher at Winkler Elementary School. Marvin has always been actively involved in the community. In addition to experience in construction and travel consulting, he's been an ambulance and fire department volunteer since 1986. Marvin has served as deputy mayor and on all council committees. Mr. Plett, please.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator, fellow citizens. Giving back to my community has always been an integral part of my decision-making process, whether as an MCC volunteer with youth in Winnipeg's core area, or choosing teaching as a career, or joining the volunteer Winkler Ambulance and Fire Department. I ran for council in order to actively collaborate with our team to bring about positive change for you, my fellow citizens. I believe that my experience and demonstrated caring and commitment bring a valuable contribution to council, making many positive changes in our city: walkways, Discovery Nature Center, skate park, business incentives, supporting downtown, senior living, the CWE Medical Center that has grown from about half a dozen physicians to almost 50 physicians. I am pleased that we work well with our neighboring municipalities. Landfill, healthcare, operation, we are stronger and better together. Some achievements in this council term include a youth councillor, Act 32 up an exhibition center with a walking track, a field house, and ice surface, and I am very pleased that council has continued to support Central Station, the beautiful and practical new facility to support families and individuals with a variety of needs. A few of the major things looking forward are housing, and I'm actively involved currently in discussions with Manitoba and Central Health to bring more services, specialized tests and procedures like cataract services to our area that would mean fewer Winnipeg trips for you. I have supported efforts to bring transit service to our city and hope we can make that happen this term, assuring adequate supply of drinking and efficient wastewater treatment. I am pleased to say that we've always been able to keep our taxes at the lowest, one of the lowest in the province, because that's important for us as residents. I pledge to continue using my experience and care to make Winkler a place where you can dream, build, and live. So on October 26th, please go way down to the bottom of your ballot and place a strong mark beside Plett. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Plett. Andrew Fraze. Andrew Fraze was born and raised in Winkler. He's married to Brittany with two sons, Mason and Lachlan. As a family, they enjoy recreational activities, including hockey and golf, and enjoy traveling and camping as much as they can. Andrew has a bachelor's degree in civil engineering and is a licensed professional engineer in Canada and the United States. He has worked in Winkler his entire career and currently works as at Lode King Industries in Winkler as the operations manager. Andrew has had the privilege of being on council now for 8 years and thanks the public for trusting him in this role. Mr. Fraze, please.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Honored guests and fellow candidates, thank you for being here today. I want to first say thank you to Karina Bickert for serving the last 4 years. She did a great job. And also thank you to Martin Harder on his upcoming mayoral retirement. Thank you for all you've done for the city for your many years of dedicated service. As you heard about me already, many people have been asking me why run a third term. And the people close to me know that I was considering not running. And I reply to them that recreation grant money that was just announced was my tipping point. I've been very involved in the water treatment plant, wastewater treatment plant, and the recreation. As many of you know, my civil engineering background and my passion for recreation have been two of the committees that I've enjoyed the most. And I would love to continue in that. I came here without a speech. Just like I wasn't sure on council, I wasn't sure what to say here tonight. And one thing that I do want to say tonight is it's pretty glaringly obvious to me that council is about teamwork. And playing in sports gave me that opportunity as well. Teamwork is key in any successful team, in any sport, and also in work. At Lode King, we can't do things if one department doesn't help another. We can't do things if everybody on the shop floor, all 400 of them, bring forward their ideas. If you think that the 7 guys up here that are going to be on council have all the ideas, you're going to be wrong. We don't have all the ideas. We rely on all the groups that are in this city. Central Station, our medical community, our sports community, our arts center, our food cupboard, all these places, immigration partnership. Everyone has a say and has a voice. And committee work is where that teamwork happens. We take ideas, we discuss them, and we work with our community. And I hope that whoever you vote for here is willing to do that. I'm not perfect, but I can guarantee you one thing. I will always try my best, and anyone who's worked with me before knows that of me, and I would appreciate your vote on October 26th. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fraze. Dustin Brown. I've been a resident of Winkler my entire life, the last 16 years with my wife Crystal. I graduated from GVC and for the past 18 years have been an employee at Lode King Industries. I am currently on the board of directors for the Winkler Flyers and the Manitoba Citizens on Patrol program. I have been a COPP volunteer in Winkler for over 20 years. For years now, I've read the city council minutes and more recently I'm enjoying the live streams. Thanks for coming to the forum, and I look forward to chatting with people both tonight and during the rest of the campaign. Mr. Brown, please.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for taking the time to come listen to us candidates and taking interest in the future of our city. We are fortunate to live in a community that is thriving in so many ways. Our protective services are top-notch and are envied by many other communities. You see new houses going up in different areas. New businesses are seeing the potential here and opening up shop. Small businesses also continue to succeed and do well, with data showing half of the businesses in Winkler have 1 to 4 employees. It's important we continue to support them as a city council and as a day-to-day shopper. There's so much good we can see just by looking around our city. However, there is still a lot of work to do. Capital projects that are in the works that need to be seen through to the end, things like upgrading the water treatment plant, planning our land development to find the right mix of zoning, continuing the planning process for our wastewater treatment plant, just to name a few. Several things that have recently been announced include federal funding was approved for a major renovation to the Centennial Arena. A plan was completed to implement an asset management system which will help track the many assets that the city has. This spring, a new 3-story CWE Medical Center was announced to be built, as well as an expansion to the Boundary Trails Health Center. It'll be exciting to see how the City of Winkler can play a part in helping this all come together. Affordable housing with the help of Central Station, from what I have heard, has worked very well and should continue to grow and be supported by the city. We also have a lot of relationships that need to be continued, built, and some repaired after a rough couple of years. This includes locally, provincially, and nationally. These are the things I feel are important for the city to complete as we plan for future growth, and I would love to help plan, prepare, and see through to the end. For myself, running for City Council, I've been presenting 3 platform attributes that I believe I can bring to the table: able, accountable, and trustworthy. To be able, we must have the skills, the dedication, and willingness to take a task and complete it. To be accountable, we must be responsible as a member of council and be able to justify our actions and our decisions. And finally, to be trustworthy, we must be honest and truthful while carrying out our duties. These are simple definitions, yet attributes I feel are important as I run for City Council. On October 26th, I ask for your vote and your support. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. That, ladies and gentlemen, are the speeches from our 15 candidates, 2 mayoral candidates and 13 councillor candidates. At this point, we're going to move to our question period. We are about 6 minutes behind schedule. We're scheduled to go till 9 o'clock, and what we'll do is get into our questions, which have been both submitted online as well as from the floor here this evening. So as indicated in the ground rules, the submitted questions have been screened and selected by Chamber staff for relevance, to avoid duplication, and to assure adherence to the ground rules. I will read the question. Candidates wishing to provide a 1-minute max response will place their green answer card on their holder, also known as a water bottle. Okay? And the way we'll do this is we will move on question 1 from my left to right. So from Mr. Krebs all the way down to Mr. Brown, but only if they've got their answer card up. On question 2, we will reverse the order. Question 3, we will move from Mr. Bennett this way, and then we will go back from Mr. Unruh to Mr. Brown. That way we'll change up the order in terms of who's answering when. Are we ready to roll, gentlemen? Okay. And I'm told from our sound technician, when you're holding the mic, if you don't fiddle with it and just hold it still, it should perform. Question number 1. The loss of several doctors has significantly hampered the CWE Medical Center's ability to deliver primary care service and has led to a reduction in urgent care services. What actions will you take to mitigate the loss of physicians in our community, and how do you plan to recruit physicians back into the area? What actions will you take to mitigate the loss of physicians in our community, and how do you plan to recruit physicians back into the area? Mr. Krebs, please.
I think the fact that doctors have left speaks to the fact that for the last 2 years we've been lied about, all the way from the Prime Minister's office right down to the municipal levels, and doctors have made choices to practice in other areas. We need doctors. That's clear. When I moved here 20 years ago, we had great doctors, and we still have great doctors. But healthcare is a private choice, and it has to be between the person and their doctor and their God. That's as simple as it is. When we make healthcare choice divisive, we create division in our health community and in our city.
Thank you, Mr. Krebs. Mr. Siemens.
This is an extremely difficult question to answer because there is no right answer. The key for us will be to make the investments we need to relationally and financially into what's needed. We know that there's a hospital expansion coming. We know that the clinic needs an expansion. Both of those will need some financial investment from the City of Winkler in order to happen. If we provide good facilities, if we work to repair our relationships, we are an extremely attractive place to be. But it is a multi-part piece that involves more than a few people at the table. There is no easy answer, but if we invest both financially and reputationally, we will be able to recruit those people.
Thank you. Mr. Grenier.
I can think of three things that come to mind when I think about our healthcare losses and trying to mitigate those. One of them, the relationships, mending some of them and building new relationships. So much can be done simply by building relationships. Secondly, promote the daylights out of the quality of life here in Winkler. We've got an exceptional city. Sometimes doctors and really anybody wanting to call Winkler home just needs to be shown that sometimes. It gets lost in the shuffle. And lastly, our facilities. We have some great facilities and continuing to improve them, and we've talked about these renovations and making them these state-of-the-art facilities.
Thank you. Mr. Fraze.
In order to keep them here, I think we need to have a strong community, we need to have a safe community, and we need to have lots of amenities. That's going to be we need something here to keep them here, not just to have them walk to the next best community that's out there. We shouldn't be just a stepping stone for anyone, right? We need to keep them. And of course, in order to recruit, we need to have a good recruitment team. We need to search the highways and the byways and bring them in, follow every lead.
Thank you. Mr. Bennett?
I won't take my full minute for this. I think it's really simple. Give the doctors a break. You've got experts who have studied for 10 plus years to be in that position, and we can't go to them and say, fix this problem, and say to them, we don't believe that you're an expert in your field. Let's give the doctors a break and appreciate them, along with all the facility improvements, of course, and quality of life, getting that out there. But we need to appreciate the doctors that we have, because we don't need to lose any more. And it's a small community. Word gets around. These doctors all went to university together. If they hear Winkler is a place that you can't practice the type of medicine you've been trained to practice, they won't come here. So let's all agree to give doctors a break. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Ritz.
Yes, I think we're losing some of our doctors because they feel less appreciated in this community. We trust our doctors. Growing up in this community, we went faithfully to get our polio shot, our other shots. Why are we not trusting our doctors now? What has happened that we don't put faith in our doctors? We go there when we have a broken leg, we go there when we're sick, and why are we not trusting them now? I think social media has played a big part of this. They're part of the problem because there's so many stories out there. And why has the healthcare situation become political? It shouldn't.
Thank you. Mr. Fair.
Yes. This is a very important question. I've talked to a number of doctors that came to me and said, hey, I can't take this anymore. You know, I was thinking about moving our families out of the area. And I said, just persevere. This is all going to get better. And you're overworked, just like Mark Bennett was saying. The doctors are overworked. I've gone into the hospital the last couple of weeks. I've gone in a couple of times. Doctors are just scrambling, and it's not fair. And on a bright note, we had a presentation from one of the local boards, healthcare boards, and they were saying that the government is looking at possibly opening up the qualifications for trained doctors that have come from overseas.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Fair. Mr. Cruikshank.
Oh, sorry. It's okay. I said in my opening 2.5 minutes that we must promote quality of life, as it would go a long way in attracting professionals and young families. The other reality is, though, is that Southern Manitoba is a very hard place to recruit to. I had a friend who was a recruiter for 17 years, and he said it's hard because it's not Winnipeg, and you can't recruit from Winnipeg because they never leave big city living. Winkler's never going to be big enough to have the WSO, the Winkler Symphony Orchestra. So we need to be able to recruit from other areas. One of the problems, though, when we recruit professionals is childcare. We can recruit all the professionals we want to Winkler, but if we don't have childcare spaces for them, they won't come or they won't stay. And so we need to look at opening up more childcare spaces and possibly incentivizing private daycares so that we have places for these professionals to bring their kids to.
Thank you. Mr. Plett.
Thank you. That's a great question. And as chair of the Winkler and District Healthcare Board, it's one that I wrestle with every day. I think at the basic, and a lot of these things, I try not to repeat things that have been said, but I think at the base is respect. And I want to truly thank the doctors and all the healthcare workers for working during these very, very difficult times and putting themselves out there for us. One of the things that I've, as I mentioned before, is that I'm involved with discussions with Southern Health and Central Health, or the provincial health, about getting more services here and providing more services for us here and attracting more physicians. Recently, I was at a meeting, an all-day meeting in Portage.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Fraze, please.
So I assume that things that would help would be facilities, amenities, opportunities, and community atmosphere. But I'm not a doctor or a nurse. I'm not. So if you're asking me what I would do if I was on council, I would engage the medical community, talk to the healthcare board, ask them to inquire with their doctors, why are they leaving? Ask the questions and seek answers. That's where I would go.
Thank you. Mr. Brown.
Similar reply. We need to talk to them to see why are they leaving. Even as people are leaving the area, just get a post interview to see what's going on. Why are these people leaving? But I think investing in the infrastructure, such as the CWE Medical Center and the Boundary Trails expansion, will definitely help. And I also think if we look at the town of Altona, I know they have an incentive program where they go to businesses and the city pitches in, or the town, I guess, pitches in, and they have little incentives for doctors to come. And if they sign up to stay there so and so long, they get some incentives. So maybe that's something we could look at as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Question number 2. And this time we will start with Mr. Brown and work our way over here to Mr. Krebs. If elected, what is your plan to foster a spirit of unity and cooperation within the City Council and the larger community of the City of Winkler? If elected, what is your plan to foster a spirit of unity and cooperation within the City of Winkler and the City Council? You may begin, Mr. Brown.
I think it's important that we have a lot of open townhouses, things like that, where we can talk to people, have surveys on our website, things like that, to just see what people are what people are looking for, what would make it better, and to see how we can help. And that should bring our morale up.
Thank you, Mr. Fraze.
It's a tough question. I think what I mentioned before, teamwork is important in that. We need to work with our neighbors. We need to work with all of our groups and organizations in the city to work together to figure out what relationships we need to mend. Is it in the healthcare field? Is it in our affordable housing side? Where is all the dots we need to connect? I won't have all the answers, but we need to keep seeking them out through all of our groups, our community groups.
Thank you. Mr. Plett.
Thank you. That's a good question. And I think some of the things that I think of before we had the last 2 years, we didn't have I had lots of friends. I didn't necessarily know what they believed in or what they didn't believe in a lot of things, but we respected each other, we cared about each other, and we worked together. So I think that is very important, that we listen to each other and that we respect each other, and that we respect the fact that we don't have to agree, but we can still work together.
Thank you. Mr. Cruikshank.
Thank you for the question. I've got a minute to answer this question, and I won't use all of that minute because the answer is not to talk, it's to listen. And it's to listen to the voices on the margins, and it's to listen to the voices that are marginalized. It's to listen to all voices. People don't always need to get their way, but they need to feel respected and that they were heard.
Thank you. Mr. Fair.
Thank you, Don. That was a good answer. What I believe is we've seen this. Right after the pandemic, we had the Winkler Harvest Festival, very well attended. That to me was unity. We had concerts in the park. That was unity. We have each one of us, whether it be that we can encourage a block party or whatever we can do, brings together unity. So in essence, it's every one of us as a citizen of Winkler is responsible for unity. Every little piece that we do for the city of Winkler will bring unity. We do not talk negativity. If we talk positivity, we will be a very unified community.
Thank you. Mr. Friesen?
Last 2 years has been hopefully a one-off. I always say, and I tell my friends and I tell other people, we are good people in this community. We didn't do maybe the greatest during the last 2 years, but we are good people. And I truly feel we will go back to being good people.
Thank you. Mr. Unruh.
I didn't realize we stopped. You know, it's already been said, so that part's great. But yeah, as a councillor, what can we do to enact the spirit of unity? I think just keeping an open dialogue in general, making sure that we're open to talking to each and every individual within our community without judgment or bias, stay accessible, and make sure that people are truly being heard, whether we do agree with their viewpoint or not. I mean, that open and accessible communication and dialogue just breeds unity and will help in the end. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Bennett?
Thank you. I think we need to be visible. We need to be present. I also don't want to discount the great job that the current council has done. Faced with an impossible task the unprecedented task over the past 30 months, but I also think we need to educate ourselves. I think we need to listen to what the community needs, and we can't assume we have all the answers. That's how I would address that.
Thank you. Mr. Fraze.
I think the first part of the question, unity in council, I'm going to throw at our mayoral candidates. That's up to them to keep us in line. So, the second part, community is only as strong as the family. So we have to make sure the families have what they need. Secondly, I think a lot of forgiveness has to happen. We have to forgive each other for our shortcomings and just move forward. Let's not hold grudges. Let's move on.
Mr. Grenier.
Thank you. How would I foster unity and cooperation? First and foremost, it's something I firmly believe in, and that's the golden rule, or God's second greatest commandment. That's simply treat others the way you want to be treated. Love your neighbor. I think that goes a long way. And secondly, meeting people where they're at. Some of my greatest conversations as a counselor have occurred while I'm shopping or at a restaurant or at the soccer pitch or at the hockey rink. It's just a great time to engage.
Mr. Rempel?
Well, he addressed the first half of my answer there, which is, of course, to love your neighbor as yourself. But the second half is something that I think we can do as a council, would be to give people reason to get out from behind the keyboard. I think it's really easy to get mad at people, to call people names when you're hiding behind a computer screen. So let's get out, let's go have fun together, spend some time in the park, And just remember that these are real people with real lives and real issues. And we'll get back to that unity that we had before the last 2 years.
Mr. Harder.
As Michael said, you know, we need to treat others as we would like to be treated. And I think of things I've said to my kids to think before you speak. There's a lot of contentious issues out there that, and of course the past 2 years has been a great example of that. But think before you speak. There is so much garbage on the internet, so much things, as Thomas here said, that you know, get out from behind your screen, and you want to say something to somebody, say it to their face, and have a reasonable discussion over it. If you can't do that, if you can't respect other people's decisions, there's going to be problems. And I think we need to get out from the screen, we need to obey the golden rule, and think before we speak.
Mr. Siemens?
Outside what's already been said, I think we need to stop yelling at each other, and I think we need to extend the grace that we expect.
Mr. Krebs.
The word unity is contained in the word community, and that's the coming together. We have to make allowances for each other's shortcomings and viewpoints that we don't agree with. But as part of my platform, as was sent out to almost every home in this city, hopefully, is that we have open dialogue with all facets of our city. Regularly scheduled town hall meetings would do a lot to let the pressure off in our community when the outside world is coming looking at dismantling our way of life, that we allow our parents to raise their children according to long-held traditions and values. When we start to recognize that and pull together and know that God has given us a unique opportunity here, and we stand on the truth of His Word, I believe Winkler will be the shining city on the prairie.
Thank you, gentlemen. That was question 2. Our third question. And this time, as indicated earlier, we will work from Mr. Bennett to Mr. Krebs and then return to the middle of the table and go from Mr. Unruh to Mr. Brown. Question number 3. How do you feel about the options available for transportation in Winkler, and what will you do to improve transportation in our city? How do you feel about the options available currently for transportation in Winkler, and what would you do to improve it?
So simply put, the options are pretty limited. If you don't have a vehicle, you're walking, unless you can get a ride. There has been a lot of talk for quite a while about having an inter-community transportation system, which I think would be great. There's a lot of people in Winkler that work at Decor. There's a lot of people in Warden that work at Monarch. There's no reason why we can't explore at least the idea of a transit system that could be utilized by these folks.
Mr. Fraze?
Transportation's been a big one for many, many years. Depends what angle you want to take. Transportation, we need better streets and roads, absolutely. We have good ones, but still a few that need some improvements. But as far as the being on wheels, you see some pretty unique wheels out there. But I think we need to add golf carts and we need to add quads. I'm going to go back. If you want to go green, you want to start saving some fuel, I think golf carts is it. But yeah, transit system, a public one is a tough one. It's hard to find the right model that's going to work. We've tried a few, but so far we haven't got the right one.
Mr. Grenier.
Thank you. We've talked about public transport. We've talked about ride share. We haven't been able to find that magic button that includes everything that works for the city. One idea that has bounced around my head on and off was something I read a while back. I think it was the city of Medicine Hat. They have a fleet of brightly painted orange bicycles that are community owned. So basically this allows Jimmy to walk across the street to Central Station, take his bike to work, leave it there. Sally can end her shift, take that same bike to the bike rack north of Walmart and leave it there and walk home. And they don't have, not ideal in winter, but it is better than walking. It's an idea that I've read from Medicine Hat that I thought was interesting.
Mr. Rempel.
Thank you. So I think it is a very real challenge, and I think the answer to it is going to involve collaboration and creativity. So what that looks like specifically, I'm not entirely sure, but it could look at like as something as partnering with the school division. They have a lot of buses. Maybe they got some old buses and need some replacement. So maybe the school can work with them to provide public transit. I know there's going to be scheduling things to work out, but we need to be creative about it. We can't just think, oh, we need city buses and that's just how it's going to go. We need to solve the problem. We need to do it in such a way that it's not going to cost the entire city hundreds of thousands of dollars. Thank you.
Mr. Harder.
So yeah, I agree with Thomas. There's certainly a lot of collaboration that would need to take place to make it work. And of course, part of that is you can't be everywhere at once. So that'll be the trick, is to what would it take as far as the actual assets go? Where would they need to be? How would you schedule that? So it would certainly take a lot of work to figure that out. But certainly worth exploring, because especially with all the immigrants traveling back and forth, they don't own cars, a lot of them, or people that just don't own vehicles just due to financial constraints. They need solutions, and a taxi doesn't always work, although we have them. So this may be an opportunity to dig a little deeper into what that looks like.
Mr. Siemens?
Similar to some of the other things that we've talked about, this one doesn't have an easy answer. This one has been at the council table in one manner or fashion for my entire time there. We are at the place, though, that we can't not do something anymore. We have to try to find something. I love the idea of creative approaches to it, because it's going to take a creative approach, and it's going to take money. The idea that we can do public transit without hundreds of thousands of dollars involvement is simply not the case. It is going to take money. It is going to take a number of groups. It's going to take the entire Winkler Resource Committee at the table having those discussions. It's going to involve any number of different ideas, any number of different participants. It's going to involve our business community. It has to be done, and I believe that we've heard enough here that it will be done, but it will not be easy.
Mr. Krebs.
Public transit is visionary. This is where council gets to the 30,000-foot level and starts to look beyond our horizon to cities that have had successfully done it. Chances are there's a community out there very much similar in size to us. But in the meantime, a simple private business operating shuttle buses might be an answer, creating a business opportunity for someone and perhaps the city making it feasible on the dollars and cents side. Picture a mobile app and a shuttle bus service in Winkler. We are a cold climate city. If anybody needs a shuttle bus for people in Winkler, it's Winkler. So that's visionary, and that's where council can do its best work, up at that level, looking forward and making the commitment and having the guts to do it.
Mr. Enra.
Thank you. This one has actually been pretty close to my chest here. I've spoken to a couple of individuals and looked into at least 3 different grants that the city of Winkler could, in theory, qualify for on a federal and provincial level that would assist in the purchase of a transportation system. There are, in fact, cities of our size that are currently doing this, and I think that going to them, approaching them and asking them how exactly they've managed to pull this off could gain valuable insight. Cities like Selkirk, for example, where there is a public transit system and their population isn't a lot more than ours. Reaching out and finding out how they covered the initial investment with grants in place, and we would just cover operational costs would be key.
Mr. Ritz.
Well, I should have probably taken my card down because everything I was going to say has been said. But just to echo some of the points, and both mayor candidates mentioned 2 good points, that it's possibly can be done through private enterprise, and if not, I think, as Henry mentioned, that they have worked on it over the years. And it's going to happen eventually, and I think it needs just a little more studies. Thank you.
Mr. Friesen.
Well, oh, there we go. I think we need money for new mics here. Anyways, I watch the school buses sit for a very long time throughout the days, which drives me crazy, and I sometimes think, why can't we use them maybe for public transportation? I know it's been looked at before, but to me, they just run not nearly enough where I think it'd be a great idea. And then I live up against the railway tracks, and I watch this truck sometimes drive back and forth. And I said, shoot, why can't we hook up a wagon behind that and start hauling people back and forth to the hospital in Morden? I think, the rail is there, let's use it. So, and another thing I sometimes feel is until we get public transportation going is doing some subsidized rides for some of the marginalized people, at least the taxi people can survive. That would be great too. Thank you.
Mr. Fair.
Okay, I was previously involved with the Winkler Handy Van, and the problem that we encountered was we couldn't get volunteers. We thought we had volunteers to do driving, and we didn't have any volunteers. They didn't step up to the plate, which was unfortunate. And another problem was with that the fee that we had to get was beyond the cost for the riders. So that is exponentially the cost for this, the cost of having drivers, the cost of ridership is high because now our fuel prices are doubled from what they were. So what I plan on is like a ride share, or start at the grassroots and have a community Uber-based kind of business, which is supported by the city and also by businesses.
Thank you. Mr. Cruikshank?
Thanks for the question. I understand this problem. When we moved to Winkler, we were a one-car family, and my wife worked in Morden at BDO, and that meant I walked everywhere. So even in winter, I'd walk from our house to GVC to go coach junior varsity basketball, and then I'd walk back to the church where I worked. And so I walked everywhere, and I understand that transportation is a real issue. The taxi isn't feasible to spend $30 to get to the hospital round trip. And so, like I said, there is a $60,000 feasibility study that's going to happen in January of 2023. So we'll have more answers on that as it comes out. But I learned while campaigning that 40% of regional connections, their clients live north of Highway 14. So maybe that's a place to try and pilot a project as the population density of those needing transportation is already there. I think we'll learn a lot more from the feasibility study, but I'm in favor of finding some type of affordable alternative transportation.
Mr. Platt.
Thank you. As the mayoral candidate Siemens already said, he and I have sat on a number of committees about working on this. The difference, I think, now is that just recently the federal government has made funding available for smaller municipalities. So I'm very hopeful that as far as public transit goes, that we can tie into this term, as I already said earlier. Also, the city needs to have others, things like sidewalks, good sidewalks, bike paths. I remember the first time a council decided to put $25,000 to repair city sidewalks. And since then, we're putting hundreds of thousands of dollars into sidewalks and walkways. So that's all part of a good transit system.
Mr. Fraze.
Yep, same thing there. We have great walking paths, some of the best around, and we clear them in winter too as quickly as we can. It's not always as fast as some require, but we do our best there. We have good roads, but like everyone says, our taxi and our rideshare programs that are available aren't quite enough. A lot of employees carpool, but there are a lot of people who need more. I'm very excited for the multimodal study that Don and Marvin have both mentioned. The questions that we need to answer there is, what is our level of service that we can afford? How many trips per day do we need? What can we afford as a city? And we're hoping that this study, along with Central Station, will help us answer some of those questions, because we need that study completed in order to apply for the grants that Mr. Unruh was talking about. We have also inquired with the school buses, but that's just not an option that's available to us. They have said no. But the question that we ask is, can we afford public transit? The other question that's asked is, can we afford not to have it?
Mr. Brown, please.
Thanks for the question. Just to echo what some of the other candidates have said, we definitely do need something, but what's feasible for us? I don't think buying a whole fleet of buses and having them drive around with a few people on there is going to cut it. But I think this feasibility study is going to give us a lot of answers of what we need to do moving forward and what we can afford moving forward. Thank you.
All right, that's question number 3. For question number 4, we'll begin with Mr. Unruh, move toward Mr. Brown, then return to the center of the table and go from Mr. Bennett to Mr. Krebs. Question number 4. What would you say are priorities for sustainable development? What would you say are priorities for sustainable development? Begin, Mr. Unruh.
I guess it depends on what type of development we're looking at, whether that be housing or commercial. But I mean, obviously, priorities would be zoning in order to make sure that everything is set the way that we need it to be. And then the infrastructure piece that we've talked about for the bulk of the evening, ensuring that we have the water in place, et cetera. And in order to ensure that our business community continues to thrive and that people keep moving here. Yeah, thank you.
Mr. Friesen?
I think the big problem is right now, as has been said, is staffing. You know, we need people, we need people, we need people, and everybody's screaming for people. And I said, if we can get people, but then it's housing. How do we get housing? So it's a fine balance, but working with the businesses, we have phenomenal business people in our community. There's lots of jobs, and they're always open for ideas and willing to come to the plate too and help out. So, but I still say is we need to start with bringing people in. We got to get people to fill these jobs.
Mr. Fair?
Thanks for the question. And I think Don hit it on the head. We need jobs. How do we bring people here? We need housing. We need affordable housing to bring people to Winkler. And that is, how do we bring people to Winkler? Is we have, like with affordable housing, is we have to work together, which we have in the past, to our developers. We have to work very diligently that we have requests like for multifamily housing, for single family, and for commercial, that we can continue having the jobs available for our businesses. And also the infrastructure, again, hate to repeat this all the time, but it's very important that we need the infrastructure that will continue to provide the businesses and the developments to continue to thrive in Winkler.
Mr. Cruikshank?
Thank you. Yeah, I think there's actually a couple answers to that question. Some of them have been stated already. And obviously, I think it's time as a council that we need to continue and maybe even more aggressively be proactive as opposed to reactive, so that we're not having to necessarily look at reducing our water consumption. I realize this week is a little bit of a different story, but that, you know, we're not worried about it's a drought, now we got to reduce water consumption, and that we are a little bit more proactive also on the wastewater side. But like the two gentlemen beside me have said, it's a three-prong issue, right? Because it's housing, and then it's people, and it's jobs, and those all work together. You know, Central Station is very concerned about being able to get land for affordable housing that's in the middle of Winkler so that they don't require transportation. So we need to look at, again, the transportation issue so that as the people come and have jobs, they have ways to get to them. Thank you.
Mr. Platt?
Thank you. I want to thank our teams for working together. I want to thank the developers for investing in Winkler and for suggesting ways of keeping housing costs low. So one of the things is to get housing costs low, then you need to have more density, and the city needs to continue to have more people downtown and so on, as has already been said. And there's always a budget balancing act if we want to have low density, bigger housing, and low taxes, then we'll have to cut services. If we want to have good, stable services but low taxes, then we have to have more density. So these are balancing acts that we as a budget, as a council, have to keep working on. Thank you.
Mr. Fraze?
Yeah, Marvin just answered that question. What he said. Affordable infrastructure, that's a tough one without higher density. It is what it is. We've gone through their bylaw review and talking about removing lot width restrictions and so forth. We went through a secondary plan to plan out the outer edges of town, and in that they review densities, infrastructure costs, what can we afford to put in there, right? So, yeah, what Marvin said is very accurate.
Mr. Brown.
Yeah, just to echo these guys, I mean, obviously we need to keep things affordable. We need to look at the last few questions, have doctors in place. We want people to come into town and have the services available, affordable services. We need the housing for them. The jobs are there, but bring all the rest of these things together. It'll help bring our city morale up, which we talked about. People will hear that. People want to come here, and people want to live here. Thank you.
Mr. Bennett?
Thank you. I think it's, like everybody has kind of alluded to, it's a multifaceted approach. We have to take a look at the brain drain. What I mean by that is the number of students who are leaving high school and going to study abroad, going to study in Winkler, Toronto, in the States or in Europe, and staying there, not coming back. So how do we make this an attractive community where they can build a family and build the lives that we currently enjoy? Also, we need to take a look at what is going to motivate developers to build affordable housing. And I think all three levels of government need to pitch in and need to approach this in a concerted way to make it attractive for the developers in our community to build affordable multi-unit dwellings. Thank you.
Mr. Fraze.
Sustainable development is a tough one. I think so far the businesses have done a great job. They provide jobs. And then, of course, the people will come. Build it and they will come. That's kind of how it works. The council is responsible for infrastructure, and then business, of course, will provide jobs. And then, of course, it goes round and round for the second round. It's like a spiral graph. It just turns in circles and turns in circles. It gets bigger and bigger. I think so far it's been working well. We just have to keep moving forward.
Mr. Grenier.
Sustainable and affordable development. I could highlight three priorities. The full answer would be much longer. First, we need to avoid urban sprawl. Proper density will assure affordability. And then studies have shown mixed density. It's proven for healthy neighborhoods. And lastly, continued efficient permits and zoning from our planning department. They have done a good job, and I'm sure will continue to do a good job with that, and that'll just eliminate any unnecessary red tape.
Mr. Siemens.
There's a whole bunch of long-winded answers, but it comes down to developing clear, consistent, long-term rules that are developed together using best planning practices and in consultation with our developers. When we do that and provide certainty in terms of this development process, this development system will be around for a period of time, helps to give certainty, and where there is certainty, we can develop a thought that is affordable and sustainable. There is nothing harder in a business where you have to put tens of millions of dollars in the ground than to expect that the rules may change next year or the year after. When we build clear, consistent, long-term strategies, we will have sustainable development.
Mr. Krebs.
Again, that's the vision that council has to take responsibility for, to see the need before it is something that we have to react to. We need to be proactive in that. And I do subscribe to the ideology, build it and they will come. Community, creating that community, is going to drive the people here. Sustainable development will happen as a natural thing that we have to do. The water waste treatment plant has been talked about to end, and it's going to happen anyway. It's like when you outgrow your 34 waistline, you go to a 36. It's just inevitable. So we are going to build that for no good reason other than the fact that we are at the point where it needs to happen. Sustainable development, yeah, responsible development as well.
Thank you, and that was question 4. For question 5, we'll start again, as we did at the outset, with Mr. Krebs and move right to the end with Mr. Brown. Question 5, as Winkler grows more diverse, and as we see neighboring communities like Morden and Altona supporting this diversity in conjunction with the Pembina Valley Pride organization by hosting celebrations and marches, it is the hope of many members of our community that our city will soon follow suit. Would you, as a City Council member, support events like this? And if so, in what ways? Mr. Krebs.
In a community such as ours, the ethnicity is, I believe, about 130 different countries. There's a lot of agenda that comes in here. So that's just dealing with ethnicity. It has nothing to do with your spiritual alignment, your faith elements, or your preference of who you want to be with. But we have to strike a pathway that is in some ways going to sever off 10 or 15% on the left and 10 or 15% on the right. And if we can hit a swath of 70%, we are doing well. We cannot accommodate every woman desire that comes into the city, especially when it chooses to undermine the traditional values of our community, that we are established on a principle that God is our creator, we are in relation to him, and that we serve the best interests of this community. That's what it comes down to. What do the people feel?
Thank you. Mr. Siemens?
There are lots of different groups. There are lots of different thoughts. There are lots of different things that happen in our community. Mayor and council are not involved with all of them, nor should they be expected to be involved with all of them. Mayor and council are not in agreement with absolutely every event that happens, nor should they be expected to. If, in fact, there was a group that chose to move forward with a parade, that is their prerogative if they choose to do so, if they choose to follow the local rules that are there around parades.
Mr. Grenier.
Though I may not support every ideology, I would still welcome diversity, and I think it's welcome in Winkler. Going back to my previous comments, it comes down to the golden rule and simply treating your neighbor as you'd want to be treated, and that's with respect.
Mr. Fraze.
I'm not here to tell anybody what choices they should make or how they should live their life. I'm not going to compromise my views on what life should look like for myself and my family. But that being said, if somebody wants to march down Main Street with their own views, that's their choice. Just don't ask me to be involved in every one of them. I will be involved with the ones that I agree to be involved with.
Mr. Bennett.
Thank you. So this only really works with an underlying understanding that there has to be a baseline of respect. I have to respect somebody as a councillor who I might completely disagree with. And I have to champion their right to hold an opposing viewpoint. That's how democracy works. That's why we're all here. We also had marches in the past 2 years of opposing viewpoints, and that worked out fine. People can hold opposing viewpoints in a democracy. In fact, you have to hold opposing viewpoints. That's the only way this works. Thank you.
Mr. Unruh.
Very short answer to that one. I am 100% in support of diversity in our community. However, I would certainly, and I certainly wouldn't discriminate against it. However, I do feel that the proper stage and forum needs to be set for something like that. So, as Mr. Siemens alluded to as well, I have no issue with a parade, for example, given that all the permits and everything were in order. Would I personally be there in attendance? Probably not, but it is their right, and I would respect that. Thank you.
Mr. Ritz.
Well, as a Christian and a God-fearing man, I would be opposed to a pride parade and things like that. I don't disagree that they have a right to express their opinions, but if you're asking me would I support it, I would have to say no. Thank you.
Mr. Plett.
Thank you. I think the point that I would like to make is has already been made by a number of the other people, that as we are a diverse community, we need to respect each other. And just as an example, to make a community a good community, there will be 7 councillors with the mayor, and there should be 7, and they should not all agree on everything, because then there only needed to be 1 person. So it's important that we are respectful, that we put our views forward, and then work together with the outcome. Thank you.
All right, thank you. We now have a question for just the mayoral candidates, and I will ask Mr. Siemens to go first, followed by Mr. Krebs. The question is, what is your top reason for running?
My top reason for running is that I love this community. This is where I have resided since I left Morden to come here after high school. It is, someday I hope that both my kids love this town as much as I do. Someday when they finish their education, I hope they both decide, or at least consider, coming back to Winkler. In order to do that, if I genuinely want that, it is my responsibility to step forward and do absolutely everything that I can to create, or at least participate in and influence as much as I possibly can to create that community for them. Both of them are here tonight. I want them to know that that's why I'm running.
Mr. Krebs.
This card, which if you didn't get one, let me know, I'll give it to you, because this states everything that I stand for. But my primary reason was that in coming to this community 20 years ago, I experienced a faith community that has dissipated very much so. And I'm concerned about the government coming at us from the highest levels to put Winkler in the crosshairs as it has been for so long. And we need to stand aground and plant a flag. There are hills we decided early in the pandemic that we would not die on. But our faith, which has brought us this far, is what is going to take us across the finish line. That is not for sale. We are not mortgaging our faith. We're not mortgaging our kids.
Thank you. For this next question, open to all candidates, we will move from Mr. Brown to Mr. Krebs. In the past 4 years, what area of community service have you been involved with and why? In the past 4 years, what area of community service have you been involved with and why? Mr. Brown.
A couple things. I am involved with the Citizens on Patrol program. It's a volunteer community watch program. Also on the Winkler Flyers Board of Directors. That's fairly recent, but I sure have enjoyed it. Thanks.
Mr. Fraze.
I've been involved with local sports. I volunteer probably around 300 hours a year in local sports and coaching and mentoring. As far as committees and so forth, I'm the current president of the Winkler Golf Course. I just stepped down off the Winkler Flyers board. I'm the chair of the Transportation Utilities Committee. I'm chairing the Recreation Community Services Committee. I'm on the Swamp Landfill Board, the MSTW Planning District. Probably other ones that I missed. Oh, I'm the Police Board Chair, which that one has not been easy. Yeah, that's...
Mr. Plett.
Thank you. I considered, as I said in my opening speech, that my service as a volunteer service, as you would find out if you look at the financial records of what councillors make a year, that I do not put in a claim for much of the work that I do because I feel that I want to do it for the community. So for some of the big things that have been that I've been involved in is the healthcare with the healthcare board and trying to get more services into our community. I've also been working at the federal level with a board that advocates for municipal leads for municipalities with the federal government. Thank you.
Mr. Cruikshank.
Thank you. So I've yet to serve on city council, so I don't have the list that maybe councillors would have, but here are some areas in the last 4 years that I have served. I've served as the chair for our church. I serve as the chair for our kids' school on the PAC. I've volunteered with Candace Bergen and the Federal Conservative Party 2021 Policy and Bylaw Convention. I volunteered with the Manitoba Conservatives and their election campaigns. And I volunteer with Promise Keepers. I'm the Manitoba leader for Promise Keepers. The question was why? And the answer is simple. I believe, my family believes, that we should give back more than what we take. Thank you.
Mr. Fair.
I believe that community service starts with a servant heart. And that's what I've lived all my life. I've been a servant, whether like with customers or with dealing with people. I have always had a servant heart. You know, I've served on all these committees with MSW and Fire Department Planning Committee, Senior Center Board, and the highlight of this all is that I go there with a servant heart, and I allow my character and my experience is a giving to those boards. And that's why I do it, because I feel the joy of sharing my ability and my experience with the people of Winkler.
Mr. Friesen.
Presently sitting on community boards, very few. Over the years, I've done lots of community work through different various boards and nonprofits. Presently, my new tackle has been sitting on the Cedar Estates Board, which is a senior housing condo board, and helping them through some bumps along the road, and it's been good. I sit on the Children of Hope Board, which is a national board. It's right across Canada, which helps the underprivileged kids in Mexico, and then we have been bringing groups to this orphanage. Granted, not during the pandemic, but that's where I've been involved in.
Mr. Ritz.
Yes, thank you. I've been involved in different organizations throughout my life. In my earlier years, it was involved with a lot of hockey. I played for the Royals. I also was one of the first owners of the Winkler Flyers when we started that team. But getting more recent, I'm currently the chair of the Winkler Heritage Society. I'm also the chairman of the Trinity Lutheran Church. I have been asked recently by Mr. Bill Siemens to take over his position on the Bethel Park Committee, which I will be starting in this next year. And that's the major ones. I have a lot of old ones, but I don't think you probably want to hear all those.
Mr. Unruh.
Well, my life is a lot less busy than a lot of these guys, which hopefully would bode well, as I would have more time to dedicate to you folks. I do currently sit on the District Chamber of Commerce board here in Winkler. And the primary reason why I haven't been sitting on a lot of boards or actively involved is, quite honestly, I didn't feel like I had a lot to give up until recently. So having said that, I mean, now that I've established myself in the community, being back here after a few years away, being with the Chamber for the last 3 years, as well as Solutions IT during that time, I'm finally ready to give back to the community in a meaningful way, and that's exactly why I'm here. Thank you.
Mr. Bennett?
Thank you. So yeah, the list is pretty long for me, but I think the question is kind of a two-parter. I mean, we could talk about Big Brothers Big Sisters, we could talk about Southern Emergency Response Committee, Winkler Arts and Culture, Northland Child Care Center, all the boards that I've served on and chaired. But I think the underlying question is, why do we do this? And I think obviously to serve, but also the feeling you get from serving your fellow community member. And the reason I got involved in Big Brothers Big Sisters is I was told by the previous chair that the reason he got involved was kids had actually aged out of the program. And that tugged at the heartstrings a little bit. So kids have been on the program so long, they no longer qualified. So to positively impact a situation like that, I think everybody should experience that.
Mr. Fraze.
Community service. Right now I sit on a couple of committees. I sit on Salem Board for my church. We're one of the owner churches. I also sit on a couple of committees in church. And to make a long story short, community service is what you do when you want to be part of the community.
Mr. Grenier.
Thank you. So over the last 4 years, community-wise, early on I spent some time finishing some volunteer time with the Winkler Flyers. I've been on the Big Brothers Big Sisters board, the Parent Advisory Council for my kids' school. I've also coached their hockey, baseball, soccer, and believe it or not, even rugby programs. And most recently, I have helped out with their Awana program. So as much as I love my city, I think the hours I put in shows that I love my kids a lot too.
Mr. Rimple?
Well, the long list that some of these gentlemen have seem to overshadow me a little bit, but I do have a few things that I'm passionate about as far as community service. And in the last federal election, I was helping the CHP party in campaigning in the local area. I was the person the go-to guy for signs, organizing events so that people could meet the candidate. I just recently started actually volunteering at Central Station, which is a ton of fun. Just getting there and serving people food, it's an absolute joy, and I encourage everybody to do it. But what I'm most passionate about is my church involvement. So I currently serve as a deacon in my church, which may not sound like a lot to a lot of people. But for the people in my church, it's the people who put food on your table when you can't afford it, who keep a roof over your head when that's a struggle. We also help support mission work in indigenous northern communities where there's hopeless, and I think the church should ultimately be a beacon of hope.
Thank you. Mr. Harder?
So it's definitely been well said here that there's a lot of volunteering going on, and I challenge each and every one of you out there to step up to that plate as well, especially the younger group. But to answer the question, I'm a volunteer in our church. I'm part of a men's ministry group that's starting to get going in our church as well. I'm the treasurer and director in Youth for Christ in Morden. I know maybe that's not the right word here, but that's when you got friends there, then that helps. And I'm also president of 2 different residential and commercial condo boards here as well. And so the challenge for someone who's not been at this table before, obviously that will grow should you elect me.
Mr. Siemens.
The committee list that our current council sits on is available on the City of Winkler website. You can feel free to go take a peek at that there. It's long and it's numerous and has already been mentioned. But where I find the greatest fulfillment is in my opportunity to sit on the board at Central Station, my opportunity to sit on the board at Winkler Affordable Housing. Both of those committees have really heavy lifting to do in a time when there's an increase in need that seems to be without end. There is always a greater need. There is always more need. Both of these organizations have many other board members at the table who are passionate about making a difference. I find that there are people in our community prepared to do that, prepared to step in on a regular basis. I find that extremely, extremely invigorating.
Mr. Krebs.
There's a few things they ask you when you want to run for council or mayor, and they're meant to disqualify you. Community service, if it were a qualifier, I would be disqualified because of the last 20 years, 13 of them have been spent as a long-distance driver. But I can tell you, behind that wheel and looking out that windshield, God has fashioned a heart in me for leadership. And I've learned that what God is mostly concerned about is your availability. He will give you the ability to serve if you trust Him. And that is why I decided to enter this race, is to become available to be used by God for the betterment of this community.
That concludes our questions for this evening. Gentlemen, thank you for your willingness to serve. Excellent job. Audience, thank you for attendance and the questions that you submitted. I'll now call our president back up.
I just want to say thank you to all the candidates for participating tonight and your willingness to serve in our community. Thank you to everybody who came and everybody who was on the live stream. I saw a number that was well over 700 people at one point on the live stream, in addition to the many of you that were in this room. So I won't keep you any longer. Thank you very much for coming tonight.